Welcome to Disruptive Successor, a show for next generation leaders in family businesses and entrepreneurs who want to disrupt the status quo and take their existing business to a whole new level. We all know that what got us here isn't going to get us there. This show will provide inspiration, advice, and resources to help you create massive impact. This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at the goldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session. Hi, it's Jonathan Goldhill, and welcome back to another episode of the Disruptive Successor Show. Well, you probably have figured out, if you don't already know, that I'm from New York, and New Yorkers have a reputation for our bagels and our pizza. Everyone seems to love a good bagel, and everyone seems to have their favorite bagel shop. So how does a local bagel store compete in a market with so many bagel shops? When I moved to Los Angeles from New York, I can certainly admit I went looking for my New York bagel. And when I moved to Woodland Hills in 1994, I was lucky enough to live up the street from a great New York bagel shop, where the smells of freshly baked bagels wafted out the door, and the lines on a Sunday morning filled the store as we eagerly picked out our selection of bagels. My favorite being the everything bagel. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about growing and modernizing a 75-year-old family brand, expanding from regional staple to national and international distribution, navigating generational transitions and leadership dynamics, and balancing tradition with food innovation. My guest today is Jeff Ustin, the Vice President of Western Bagel, which was the first bagel shop in Los Angeles. Jeff is carrying on his great-grandfather's 75-year legacy as a union bagel baker in New York City, while leading the Western Bagel brand's national and international expansion. Under Jeff's leadership, Western Bagel has become a West Coast staple, blending New York tradition with LA innovation and my favorite bagel. Jeff, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
So let's start, as I like to usually, with, your journey into the business. Take us back, what it was like for you, but even maybe start before you were a young adult, child maybe, coming into the business, and tell us a little bit about the family business and the history of it.
So in my grandfather, David Ustin, he was a bagel baker in New York in the Union, and he heard there was no bagels out in the West Coast. So in 1947, he packed up and decided to come to Los Angeles and open a bagel shop in downtown LA. And he came out, opened a bagel shop. The first day they opened, it was a phenomenal success, and he was obviously very excited about it and knew this was the right decision he made to come out here. So that was in 1947, and then things progressed. And then my dad, Steve, got into the business. He obviously grew up in the business working with my grandfather, and they founded Western Bagel in 1947. Well, my grandfather founded it, and then my dad and him took it over. And when my dad graduated college, he went in full-time to the business, and it was him and my grandfather. They had a partner, and they bought out the partner that my grandfather had, and it was just my dad and my grandfather running the business. That's how it started. And then I I've always worked in the business since I was a kid. I used to come in with my dad at 3 in the morning, the bagel baker hours, in the summers. And I used to love it. He'd have me come in, I'd sweep, I'd pack bagelettes, which are little mini bagels. He'd have me and, I have an older sister, Corey. She would also be with me and we'd come in and it was the coolest thing in the world, coming in 3 a.m. as a 9 and a 10-year-old and sweeping and learning the business from the bottom up. And that's just how we did it. And then when I was 13, 14, I started working in our retail stores, learning that side of the business, which is obviously the bread and butter of the business of the retail stores, learning how to have customer service. Meanwhile, always taught work ethic. My grandfather and my father, they worked, 6, 7 days a week to get us going into where we're at. My dad still comes in 6 days a week. He takes Sundays off. He comes in and he lives for it, and I'm the same way. It's in my blood. And I've just grown in the business, and it's my passion, and it's my life, and I love every bit of it. And I'm proud to be a part of this business and family. It makes me very excited. I'm married, got my 2 kids. My daughter, she worked when she was in high school. She worked on the weekends in the store. My son, he just graduated high school. He works on the weekends, and now he'll be working in the summer here and before he goes off to college. And it's been a great family tradition.
That's one of the most really interesting things about family businesses. And I'm not even sure that families could define or identify exactly what it is that keeps the family together and the business together through all those generations. There are some lessons, maybe they were taught around the dinner table or maybe in the car ride on the way to work at 3 in the morning.
Right.
I mean, somehow these lessons or values, maybe it's really, get pushed down and transfers from generation to generation. It's more than just, okay, well, here's the recipe for how to make a great bagel. These are like the secret sauce of family businesses and what keeps them together. And so maybe um, you're welcome to touch it, to comment on that, or, what were the things that maybe you heard or learned, or that keeps it going from generation to generation. What's the secret sauce? I think that if entrepreneurs understood that, they would build that into their business from the get-go.
Right. Since I was a young kid, my grandfather passed in 97. So I was able to work with him when I was younger. And him and my dad, Steve, would always teach me you're only as good as your employees that you have. You need to be loyal to them. They're the backbone of your company. You need to treat them with respect, the same respect that you expect you need to give. And that's just how I was raised. And I've taken that with me to my kids. Whether you work in sanitation, whether you're in production, whether you're the CFO, whether we're all the same. And everyone needs to be treated the same. And that's how I was raised. And that's a quality that I feel like is so important to a business because a lot of people forget about what got you there and who gets you there. And we don't. We have employees that have been here for 40, 45 years. Some are retiring now because they're getting older, but I mean, they're the backbone of this business. And without them, we aren't here. And there's not a day that goes by where we're not thankful for all our employees and how amazing and fortunate we are that we have that relationship. We have an open door policy. They can come into my office anytime, my dad's office anytime. We walk through the bakeries. We know their names. They're not just an employee number 2205. It's their name. And that's how, to me, is the key to keeping a business successful.
Now, you spend most of your time in the bakery, which is the manufacturing department. Is that right? And that's
Yes.
basically Nice, where I ran an organization for 10 years, providing services to businesses. But you have 11, is that right? Retail stores?
We 10.
10. And are you going into those stores and knowing the people behind the counter? Or can the same be said of those people as said of the bagel makers?
Yes,
the folks.
absolutely. Most of our managers, especially, I mean, they've been long time employees with us. We've worked together for many, many years. A a lot of high school jobs. So the kids, they go through high school and then they go off to college. So there's a lot of turnover in a lot of the weekend help. But all the old timers, the veterans, we know them all. My dad, I was always in the manufacturing part when I was younger, and my dad was doing the retail stores. So that's kind of how it went. And now I do all the retail stores also. And it's it's a family, and we feel that way, and it's it makes you feel good knowing that you know people's name and you know who they are, you know how their kids are doing and their relationships, and it's very important.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I think we definitely touched on the secret sauce, and thank you for sharing that. So, your journey into from like helper, employee, uh, to a leadership role, what was that like? I think everyone's journey is a little bit different when they're a family member, and it's always something that some family members take on either very cautiously or maybe too bullishly. And I think this is also a really big challenge in larger family businesses is how do you get accepted and looked up to as a leader, and especially if you're only like 20 or something years old and you're all of a sudden like your family and your leader. So what was your journey like? Tell us about that.
When my dad told me I'm, obviously gonna move up in the company and this and that, and he told me he expects me to be the first one here, the last one to leave, and you got to work harder than everybody else because you have to earn their respect, and so people don't think it's just handed to you. And it hit me at a young age. I learned that, and I knew he would tell my man. I had managers, and he would tell them, "I want him treated the exact same as anybody else. His schedule's no different than anybody else. I don't want him off days that he wants or hours he wants. He's new. Treat him like that." So when I was a manager, that's how I was treated, and it helped me grow into who I am today. And when you're 19 or 20, you're like, oh, come on, like you want this hours, this days off, but that's not the real world, and you got to pay your dues, and I did, and it made me who I am today, and I'm so thankful that my dad taught that to me, and that's how I'm teaching my kids that you got to earn everything you get, and you got to work hard, and your work ethic is who you are as a person, and your word and your loyalty, and that's how, to me, you can become successful in a family business.
I think it's also a huge challenge because as a parent, you have to make sure that your child is going to adhere to the values that you're trying to teach. And, there's always a rebellious child in the bunch somewhere, I find.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and I think it's challenging. So, well, kudos to you.
Well, thanks.
So, so let's talk about also the origins of the business being, like a New York bagel. And by the way, we all kind of know the secret sauce in New York bagels. It's the water. They always
Right.
say.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I know you've heard that many times over.
Yes.
And
That's what they say.
yes. So I won't
Right.
ask you what the secret is. Maybe you're bringing in New York
Right.
water. But
Right.
how do you keep that original, like, New York spirit alive today? In other words, like, how do you balance innovation and also legacy a little bit? You're trying to be still known as a kind of a New York bagel shop, I guess. Um, how do you keep
Right, with an LA touch.
right? So, like, is that something that's actively talked about, nurtured? Is it just is in the DNA of the people? Does it influence the people you hire? And talk a little bit about keeping that New York spirit alive.
And no doubt the bagel. Obviously, New York's the king of bagels for sure. And my dad actually was born in Los Angeles. So he was born here. So when I was younger, him and my grandfather, obviously, my grandfather was a New Yorker and my dad's he's from Los Angeles. So they would always have their arguments about Yankees, the Dodgers, and all that good stuff. And they'd go back and forth on that. And it's just like with our company. We are a New York bagel with an LA touch. A New York bagel is very dense. An LA bagel isn't as dense. It's not as heavy. It's or chewy on the outside with a crust on chewy on the inside with a crust on the outside. And that's how we differentiate ourselves. We're still a New York bagel, but we have a California touch, which is not as dense. As you know, a New York bagels, they're heavy and good, bad, or indifferent. It's just different. And that's not our bagel. And but yet we definitely try to keep that New York spirit alive. Obviously, that's who we are in our background. And as a company, as New York was the soul of the company back in the day. And obviously, I was born here also, in Los Angeles. So, but we're a LA company with a New York heart and background. That's
Good.
how I would describe us.
So you're going through a major modernization and expansion right now, I understand. And that also requires like preserving authenticity while evolving into new markets. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to as far as the modernization and expansion.
So, for like our retail stores, we know the younger generation, they look at things different. They're very into social media, and that's important to them. And we were living in 1995 until recently on our social media, and now we're trying to get in touch with that. We hired a social media team that goes out there. Today, for example, at our Granada Hill store, we had Bagel Brad, we have our Bagel Brad. He dresses up in our Western Bagel outfit. He went to Granada Hill store this morning for a couple hours to meet and greet, and they do a spin to win prizes, and just to get him out there, get our name out there. And so we post stuff on social media because we know, it's hard to get the young kids excited about stuff. And so we're trying to reach out to them because that's the next generation of bagel customers. And so we're trying to get them, but also to keep who we are as a company. You can't sell your soul. And so we're trying to find a happy medium, and we feel like we're definitely making strides, and we're excited about the future for that. Then we hired a PR firm. It was at April of 2025. We just hired a PR firm to help us get our name out there and to stay relevant. So when people look up bagels, they see us right away because we have a stronghold in the valley, but we want to make sure we preserve that name and keep our name out there and our reputation obviously intact. And the PR firm we have, Society 22, has been phenomenal, and we're very, very happy. They do a phenomenal job, and it's been a great partnership already to start, and we're very excited about where they're going to take us from a PR standpoint.
Yeah. So when you think about expansion, what's the like plan? What's the planning process or discussion process like in your family? You've got options, right? You could open up more retail stores. You could penetrate more of Los Angeles. I know you. I know your brand well because I was around it for so many years, growing up, raising my family across the street. And I know you as a Valley brand. So you have the option of going into Los Angeles, expanding, moving into Orange County, going into the Conejo Valley. But you also have the option of getting into private label, which you've told me that you're doing a lot of,
Yes.
wholesale distribution. So back me up before you tell us a little bit more about the composition and makeup of your business. What is the planning process or decision making process of, okay, what direction are we going to go in as a business? What does it look like?
My dad and I talk obviously every day. We work together. And so every morning we get here early in the morning. So for the first 45 minutes of every day, I'm fortunate enough where I get to see my dad every day and work together. So for the first 45 minutes to an hour, we talk. 95% of it's life. We just talk about my wife, my kids. I talk about his wife and just life, sports, you name it. And then there's always business talk in there. And we go back and forth on what direction we should go in. We have 2 manufacturing plants in Van Nuys. We've always thought about we'll open up another factory out of state in another part of the country. So that's always been discussed. And then retail stores also, like you said, we're strong in the valley. The valley is that's our bread and butter. That's our baby. And we always thought if we hit an area like Orange County, you have to hit it hard. You can't just throw a store out. We learned the hard way. We have one store out there, and we ended up selling it. And this is a long time ago. We ended up selling it because if you don't have a bunch of stores out there, you're You're just not known, and it's very challenging. So we always go back and forth on where we should go. Do we go to Arizona? Do we go to Scottsdale? Do we go to Vegas with a new concept? Well, there's different ideas that we keep throwing around, and we go back and forth. And the good thing about us is we can make the decision between the two of us, and then we decide, and then we get our team together, and then we all get together with ideas. And so but it's challenging out there, as you know. But no, we're definitely excited for the future, and we know good things are coming, and it's going to be a good year.
So that's great. And I think that's interesting and very clear about how you and your dad work so closely together, and you're bantering constantly and making decisions kind of as you're moving about, as opposed to a formal planning process. And I'm guessing that you and your dad also, since you said you talk a lot about, the family, the wife, the kids,
Right.
that maybe your dad is weighing in as well on what your daughter, son, how what they should or could be doing.
Right.
And so you probably have to balance. Sometimes parents feel like their parents are getting over involved, or
Right.
tell their children how to parent. Um, so I'm sure that you talk a lot about the values and the traditions and the expectations, as of your employees and of your family members in the business. Yeah,
Mhm.
super super interesting, and it just points to how strong the culture is in your business, and how strong the culture is in a family business in general, that makes it last through 4 generations. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to compete against the big companies out there, and we bang heads with them, and we've made it through some tough times, and we just know that when you have the right values and the right culture, like you were just mentioning, you can survive. You can't. You have to stick with it. You have to fight the fight. You got to fight the good fight, and believe in your product, believe in your culture, believe in your company, believe in your employees. And when you do all that, you will succeed. And our employees know that we have their back, and if they need something, we're here for them. And it's just been I've learned so much throughout the years. And one thing about my dad is he's always let me do my thing. And I have so much respect for him, not only as my dad, but as a business owner. And, I've looked up to him my whole life, and he's always let me be who I need to be. And I appreciate that so much always.
So what are some of the biggest, and by the way, just a comment. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking about some of the bagel companies that you've had to compete against. Some of them are venture capital backed. Some of them are publicly traded. Uh, it's, it's a tough market. And so you've got to have something that's really going to be strong, a good product, obviously, right? That goes without saying, but
Right.
you also have to have a really strong organization. And I think that is like the integrity of your culture to stick together. All right. So you said your dad, I don't know if your words, he gives you a lot of freedom. He gives you, so looking at some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from leading a family business, and, um, what are some of those like lessons, or maybe interesting, things that you've done that maybe have been a little disruptive, like maybe introducing social media?
Right. Yes.
Maybe that's not disruptive because you had to get with the program, but like,
Right. Well, that came from my kids.
oh, good.
They,
Okay. So they're the disruptors in this.
yeah, so they're the ones. They're the ones that kept telling my dad and I, "You guys got to get out there. We have to get some social media going." My daughter Cody, she's 22. My son David's 18, and obviously that generation, that's their thing. And if you don't change with the times, you're gonna fail. And sometimes I can be a little stubborn. And my own kids have taught me so much, and my wife has taught me so much that you have to open your eyes. You have to be open minded, and it's been so helpful to have them along the journey to sometimes wake me up to see what I need to see. Because you know how it is when you go to work every day, you have the blinkers on, and it's been very good for them to help me out along the way.
Now, did they go out and get other jobs before they are joining the business? Did you have any policy around that? Was education something really important? Like, talk to us about how the kids are going to be integrated into the business or what their vision is. Maybe they have a vision for making something wholly different or bigger or not being part of it at all.
Right. So my daughter, she worked here, like I said, during high school, and then she went off to Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin for college. Now she currently has a job that she works full time. She still helps us out consulting and helps us out with ideas. So she will see what her future plans. Obviously, she's always gonna be a part of Western Bagel. And then my son David, he just graduated high school. He's been working the weekends. He'll be working the summer. He's heading off to University of Arizona for college, and he'll be helping me along the way also. My dream is obviously to work together, and we'll see what the future holds. And but they'll always be a part of Western Bagel, and that just makes me very happy and proud to know that we'll always be together.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
So you must have an approach also to developing your non-family employees while still maintaining a family culture. Um, do you have any kind of structured leadership or management training or or plans in place for bringing more non-family employees into leadership roles? So,
Right. So we actually have quite a few employees that are non-family that are in leadership roles. We have a head of sales that's not a leadership role. Our CFO's on in family roles. Sorry. Our general manager is not. Our and most of our head departments are not. I was always told you got to know what you know and what you don't know,
Mhm.
and you can't do things just because I'm the boss, I can do it. Well, there's a lot of things I know I don't know, and there's things that people just do better than me. And I've accepted that and you learn from that. And to me, that's part of how you can become successful is you gotta put that ego aside and trust people and learn. And that's what they're good at. I'm good at certain things and I'm not good at certain things. So in a family business, the ego's got to go or you'll fail because you need people that can help you grow and keep you going, um, and get you to the next level. And that's part of the adjustment that a lot of family businesses struggle with. They put just because they're a family member and they put them in a position where they're really not gonna they don't really have a chance to succeed, and it's not fair to them or to the company. And my dad taught me that at a young age, and so we've never put in a person where we just know they're not going to succeed because it's not fair. So we have people in the right positions. We're very fortunate to have a amazing staff. We're very fortunate.
That's really terrific. And it sounds like many other family businesses, you treat your non-family employees like family. And
Yes,
I can
always.
only imagine that there are times when you have celebrated, uh, holidays, things like that, where everyone is coming and participating and sharing in the Western Bagel regalia or something.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And those are important moments and memorable moments for many of your employees and their spouses and their children who come.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I got married 23 years ago, we had a lot of our employees were at my wedding, and we wanted them there. Like that's who we are as a couple and as a person, and that's was important to me.
That's great. So, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about your expansion plans. You do a lot of private label, you do some wholesale and distribution. How do you look at the makeup of the market and the opportunities and or what are you most excited about in the future for Western Bagel?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity out there. We do a lot of private label. That's a big part of our business. We know we have the best bagel out there. We take pride in our bagel. We use the highest quality ingredient. I mean, it matters to us. and a lot of people want our bagel in their label, and that makes you feel good that they want our bagel in their label to represent them. And that's a big part of our business. And there's a lot of opportunity in that. We ship throughout the country, and there's a lot of growth. Obviously, shipping costs are challenging, transportation costs. We're actively looking at different areas to open
So,
a
I mean,
factory.
bagels are not very heavy, so it's not hard or difficult from that standpoint to ship them. But
Right.
keeping them fresh without putting a lot of preservatives in them, is
Right.
probably a challenge. And so, is that what you're talking about in terms of the difficulty with transporting them from place to place, or?
More cost. The cost associated with shipping, whether we go to back east or the Midwest. And we do ship bagels to these areas. We know we have a good quality product that people want, and we stand by it. And we know there's a lot of room for expansion.
And I'm sure there's a lot also you have to do with testing. I think I told you on our prior call that I spent almost a couple of years working with King's Hawaiian Bakery. And, one of their big challenges, because they have these really fresh sweetbread type of a roll.
Yes, they're fantastic.
They're fantastic. And
Yeah.
the only problem I hear is parents say that they get eaten before the car ride home ends up at the house.
Right.
Um, but so they have to focus on shipping stuff with cold storage, and so imagine there's a lot of testing and innovation of how do our bagels hold up if we ship it and then it's baked on premises. Do we ship it frozen? Do we ship it raw dough? And what is how does it change when it goes from raw to being frozen to then being deep, thawed and then cooked? These are things that you've been through.
Yes, all the things you mentioned. We've been doing this a long time now, so we feel like we're pretty good at it, but that we could always improve. But yeah, that King's Hawaiian, like you mentioned, they have a phenomenal facility. It's state of the art. It's gorgeous. They should be proud of that facility. But yeah, all the things you mentioned. But we do it all. We do raw dough. We do frozen. We have bake and serve product, which we send to the markets, or it's baked, par baked, and then it just goes in their oven for a few minutes to bake it off completely. So some of the supermarkets do that. We have all kinds of different bagels that we can sell.
Yeah. And I'm sure like there's a whole quality assurance and quality control process in place for all that. But
Yes.
talk to also, what about trends in consumer preferences, health conscious baking? I live in a house with someone who only likes gluten-free bagels. And as much as I like mostly gluten-free products as much as I can, I've not actually had a good gluten-free bagel yet, because it just seems to be like an oxymoron or something.
Right. They're different.
What are these very different? What is consumer preferences? How big a role do they play in the next generation of bagels at Western Bagel?
They definitely play a big role. Years ago, we had a bagel called the alternative bagel, which is a huge thing for Weight Watchers. When Weight Watchers was massive, and that's when the carb thing, everyone was on a carb diet, and we had an alternative bagel, which was, I mean, got us through the times back then. So we're always constantly looking out for new ideas, high protein, a perfect 10 bagel, which has a lot of protein, and the gluten-free. Yeah, they're definitely different. It's a completely different product that we do not do. That's something we don't know how to do it. We don't claim to know how to do it. There's actually a good place in the valley that has a good gluten-free bagel. People, if you're interested, I'm trying to think of the name of the place, but it's on Sherman Way.
I'm not interested actually. So,
But there is a good one.
yeah, I mean, I would think that you have to stick to your core, Jeff, and if you're
Yes.
really
Yes.
good at making like an authentic New York bagel, and now say,
Right.
and I'm in Eastern Long Island right now, and there's a Goldberg's, a nice Jewish bagel.
Right.
They have
Yes.
gluten-free bagel, and because they have
Okay.
a big market there. But I think unless you do it really well, it not deteriorates, but it affects your brand. If you do a poor gluten-free bagel, now it taints, it tarnishes
Yes.
the word. It tarnishes your brand for what you really are good at. So you've got to stick to your core.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And we still have our core. We'll always have our core bagels. And you're definitely spot on with what you said. Spot on.
Okay, what's the best-selling bagel flavor?
It's still we call it a water bagel, but a plain bagel, and then the everything bagel second.
Wow. And the everything bagel is so good because it's just got everything. You get
Right.
more for your money, I think, with an everything bagel. You get it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Um, and who doesn't like more for their money, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you went through a tough time a few years ago. You know, this is being recorded in 2025, but COVID was a retail killer. And so, how did COVID affect your business? Is that what moved you into like maybe catering or shipping, distribution? Talk to us about COVID.
Yeah, obviously COVID changed the whole world, let alone the food market. So when COVID hit, the delivery services took off, and that the Reeds, the DoorDash, all those, and that's become a big part of our retail business is the delivery services. Like anyone will tell you, one of the problems with the delivery services is people you lose the impulse purchase, and you lose it, and it changes the way the world has gone and changes the way the retail stores how they how they operate. But you got to adjust. You have to make adjustments, and that's the new way of the world is the delivery service. And it's a growing aspect of our business. And I see that as it will continue. So, but COVID, it made you better at a lot of things. It also made you look at things that you didn't look at before. And so there's always something good that comes out of something horrific, as obviously that was. But you learn from things and you get better. You grow from it. And looking back, there's been things that we learned that have made us a much better operation. And that's how you got to look at it.
So you came out of COVID stronger, is what I'm hearing, but it was
Right.
probably not easy ma- um, m- uh,
Correct.
maneuvering through it. And it was financial disaster for a lot of companies who, I mean, you and I know just driving Ventura Boulevard in San Fernando Valley, which for those that don't know is a very long street,
Yeah.
probably I'm going to say 10 miles long, and the number of restaurants that Jeff, you and I probably went to that are now boarded up in Encino and Tarzana and Sherman Oaks. It's unbelievable. Places that maybe weren't doing that well, but were managing to survive just got killed. So
Yes.
it was a tough time.
A lot of those places were so when COVID hit, you could get a dozen bagels and it would sit at your house. Where if you go to a steakhouse, you can't have a steak sit at your house for 3 days. So people would get a dozen bagels, and you could have breakfast for a few days at your house. And so it was a little different. It was more of an essential food because people had to eat. You had to eat. The higher end restaurants really took a toll, and so do we, no doubt. But we were able to hang on and get through it. But it was very, very challenging.
Yeah. Um, all right. So, hot spot question or hot seat question. Sorry.
Right.
Any lessons from failed ideas or tough turning points? Failed product. Well, you told us about the Orange County store, which was really a good
Yeah.
lesson, right? Don't go into a
Very.
with just one store and think
Yeah.
that, you probably had the halo effect of thinking we have a great brand. We'll just go in and
Right.
open up Orange County and boof. So yeah, that
Yes.
sounds like a good. Was there any others that come to mind? Like,
I mean, that was definitely a very good lesson. And then we opened up a ghost kitchen, which have been the ghost kitchens where they're behind the scenes and like 20 places in one thing. We tried one of those, and that it wasn't for us. We like seeing the customers. We want to interact. We want to know the faces, see people. And so, we learned that too. We went into something that we didn't really know. And we thought, oh, we can probably do this. Well, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. And that goes back to where you got to know what you know and what you don't know. And so we're going to stick to what we do know going forward. And learn from mistakes that we've made along the way, and we've definitely made some, and no doubt about it. But you learn, and that's all you can do is hope you learn from them.
Well, Tom Peters, who wrote the best-selling business book in the 1980s, In Search of Excellence, said you got to stick to your knitting. And that is definitely what I'm hearing right here.
Yes.
Stuck to your knitting. All right. Let's wrap up with just one more question and then anything else you want to share. Community involvement and stewardship, super important, I think, in family businesses, is teaching the importance of giving back, whether it's to your employees or to the community, or local brand loyalty. Talk to me about what Western Bagel is doing in that area of what I call stewardship.
Yeah, we always constantly give back. You got to help those that need help. And we give to a ton of charities. We're always giving. We give to schools. We give to shelters. There's a lot of things that we constantly, on a day-to-day basis, give to the community that we need to support. That's our job. We believe that's our job as a company, is to help those in need, that need help. Because we all know there's a lot of people out there that need help. And if we turn our back on the community, shame on us. We weren't built that way. We don't think that way. And, you got to help people. And so there's charities every day that we're giving to. That's what we've always done. And that's what we believe in. And we believe that every company should do that. And the world would be a much better place.
It sounds like you spread it around. You don't have a singular charity or a few singular charities. It's just,
no.
Hence, I guess the day-old bagel that everyone knows about becomes a popular item for a lot of folks.
Yes.
Jeff, I really enjoyed chatting with you on the show. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, we just hope that everyone goes into our stores and leaves with a good experience and enjoys our product, and just know it's made with love and passion. And we just hope that the Western Bagel name means something in people's house, because it means the world to myself and my family and all our employees that made us who we are. And we just thank all our customers and thank everybody for supporting us through all these years. And it's been a great experience for me as a 48-year-old.
Great. Well, thanks for being on the show today. Thanks for the good work you guys do in the community. Thanks for the bagels that I've eaten at your stores many times.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll wrap up with, folks, if you know someone who's running a family business and wants to tell their story, their family business story, talk about the journey, the legacy, the innovation, or even the complex family dynamics that are involved in leading a multi-generational family into the next generation, and sharing a little bit of that secret sauce, as I called it. We'd love to hear your story, and hope you'll stay tuned to future episodes of the Disruptive Successor Show.
This podcast is sponsored by myself, Jonathan Goldhill, and my company, the Goldhill Group, where we provide coaching for growing companies. I'm Jonathan Goldhill, and my purpose is simple: to guide entrepreneurial leaders in family businesses towards more freedom and fulfillment. I want entrepreneurs to get clarity around the changes that will make them and their businesses more successful, so they can experience the same freedom I've enjoyed in my life. Our proven practices challenge business owners to think differently about their business and how they're running it, and quite literally become game changers in our clients' companies. Learn more at thegoldhillgroup.com website, where you can schedule your free strategy session.
Thank you for joining us on the Disruptive Successor Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, review, and share with a friend who would benefit from the message. If you're interested in picking up a copy of my book, Disruptive Successor, go to disruptivesuccessor.com.